Hi, I'm Bill Nichols, editor of Sketch Magazine, comic book writer, inker, editor, comics guy. This is in response to John Wilson's video, Comics I'm Thankful For, where he politely tagged me and Lisa Moore, who really needs to do her video as well, and may have already done it. I've been around comics for a long time, 40 plus years, a long time. And in that time, I've been a comic book fan, comic book reader, collector, retailer, fan artist, comic book creator. And throughout the phases of my life at different times, I have enjoyed and experienced different comics creators, been influenced by a lot of different things. So this may be a long video, and I may have to break it up into several videos just because of how long it is. Make it more bite-sized. It started when I was a kid, probably about 4 or 5. My dad would bring us, my sister and I, back a comic book from town when we lived out in the country, sort of. Nowadays, it's only maybe 15 minutes away, if that. But when you're a kid, it seems so far away, and we weren't really isolated, but it sort of felt that way. And comic books were this source of wild adventure. And in my day, that was the time for Batman with Adam West, Star Trek, the original. I'd probably caught on reruns, maybe not when it was brand new. Green Hornet. There are a lot of things that we lived for. I lived for that a sense of adventure. I read a lot, and for me, comics wise, it was probably Marvel that really caught my attention. The stories were more dynamic to me. Um, the writing, Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, um, those guys were writing things that went along with those adventures. And I really didn't get into artists so much. I started noticing John Buscema, Sal Buscema on the Avengers, John Romita on Spider-Man, and I picked up on those things. And to be honest, some of that early selection may have been because those things caught my dad's eye when he was on the news rack. I'm not picked a comic book off the spinner. Years later, I came to appreciate DC a lot more, and actually, uh, at this point, it's a fair balance on those two, and maybe even weighing on DC because a lot of the people back in that day, you didn't see a lot of cross um, people going across the street, so to speak, from Marvel to DC or DC to Marvel. The first one I really was aware of was, of course, Jack Kirby doing the New Gods after he left Marvel, that kind of thing. But another artist that really uh, caught my eye was Neal Adams on an issue of the Avengers. I think it was '95. The story was, I think it was this beachhead Earth, and um, his sense of dynamic drawing just really captivated me. But most of the Marvel books really did it for me at that time when I was younger. Um, but the Marvel characters as well, and to this day, that has stayed with me in my selection, I really didn't bother with X-Men so much until Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum brought back the new X-Men. That really um, brought that title back to me, which it did for a lot of people, and that was sort of the whole point, and that was sort of a new phase of my life. But even that, when John Byrne came on, that if it was in third gear, it went into overdrive with John Byrne and Terry Austin and Chris Claremont producing that book. That was my favorite book at that time. Um, I'd liked John Byrne before that, but on Iron Fist and some other things where he did um, some of the art, but that book just for me really solidified it. Writing, art, experience-wise. So when I was a kid, it was mostly Marvel. I also liked westerns. Of course, back in that time, we watched westerns on Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons. Horror books, Mike Plug doing Werewolf by Night, Gene Colan doing Tomb of Dracula. Those things, pretty much anything Marvel at that time. Some DC here and there, and mostly it was Batman. Jim Aparo, Dick Giordano, um, others that I came to appreciate later on. But Marvel again did it. So throughout my younger creating my own adventures, um, drawing my own characters, it was more of a Marvel take to it, Marvel influence. If I had to pick a book in DC, it would have been Justice League. Where you had several characters come together, and that was my chance to sort of. And then that's another thing about team books is you got to see several characters at the same time interact, and um, hopefully they got your attention and you followed their own books. Now I sort of liked Superman, sort of like Green Lantern, sort of like the Flash, but um, those came later on with different runs and different creators, different storylines. So not so much gimmicks. I've never really been a big gimmick guy as far as the stories go. Then some of the crossovers, the big company-wide crossovers, um, then you sort of had to maybe follow some other books. But in a lot of cases with Marvel, I followed them anyway. I looked at them, read them, and that was from my younger years to my teenage years. Those were the books that really got me.